Just when you think government agencies and places like NASA are starting to be more forthcoming with their knowledge, something new hits the internet that has folks like me sighing from deja vu. You might think you know everything at this point, but I promise you that NASA still has some deep dark secrets left to reveal. Question for y'all, what info drop about NASA has shocked you the most? Let me know in the comments, and let's see if I found anything you don't know yet in today's edition. How about we kick off today with the discovery that personally shocked me the most, and that's Operation Paperclip. Alright, goofy word time. Yule Tube Land doesn't really like a lot of the words that have to do with the mass extinction event of the 1930s and 40s, so bear with me while I talk about the Yahtzees and more. The Third Reich had built up a huge bank of scientists, engineers, and technicians over the course of that big, bad event. And after the conflict ended, the US wanted to use some of their knowledge for their own gain. Because why not? Gotta hoard all the knowledge you can. Thus came Operation Paperclip, a plan to rehouse hundreds, if not thousands, of former Yahtzee scientists in the US and put them to work on various projects. And one such project was the early days of NASA. Conducted by the Joint Intelligence Objectives Agency, it was largely carried out by special agents of the US Army's Counterintelligence Corps. One of the people brought over during this operation was Kurt DeBoos, a former V-2 rocket scientist. He was transferred over to NASA in 1960, and in just 2 years was named the first ever director of its Launch Operations Center. From there, he oversaw hundreds of rocket launches and played a pivotal role in the preparations for the moon landings. Now, at the time, President Truman spent 16 months before making his decision to approve Operation Paperclip, and several of the Paperclip scientists were later investigated because of their links with the Yahtzee party. I wonder why. Only one Paperclip scientist, George Rickey, was formally tried for any crime, and none of the Paperclip scientists were found guilty. And we're talking not found guilty in the US or in Germany. Rickey was returned to Germany in 1947 to stand at the Dora trial, where he was acquitted. We got another person in 1951, weeks after his US arrival. Walter Schreiber was linked by the Boston Globe to human experiments conducted by Kurt Blohm at Ravensbrück, and to be safe, he's like, I'm just gonna head over to Argentina. But he did that with the aid of the US military. In 1984, Arthur Rudolph, under perceived threat of prosecution relating to his connection as operations director for the V-2 missile production to the use of forced labor from Mittelbau-Dora at the Mittelwerk, renounced his US citizenship and headed back to West Germany, which they're like, here, have citizenship. For 50 years, from 1963 to 2013, the Strughold Award, which was named after Hubertus Strughold, the father of space medicine, for his central role in developing innovations like the spacesuit and space life support systems, was the most prestigious award from the Space Medicine Association, which was a member organization of the Aerospace Medical Association. Well, what happened in 2013? On October 1st, in the aftermath of a Wall Street Journal article published in 2012, which highlighted somebody's connection to human experiments, the Space Medicine Association's executive committee was like, we're gonna retire this award, we'll start a new one. So, after all that, Operation Paperclip remains a dark mark against America's post-bad things activities, and NASA was a part of it. It's an icky secret, one that doesn't get any easier to hear, no matter how much you talk about it. So, conspiracy theorists have accused NASA of staging the moon landing since the day the footage aired on live TV. So, fast forward to 2006, when NASA admitted that nobody could find the original video recordings of the 1969 landing. Suspicions that it was all just one big hoax, yeah, they flamed up. One would think that something like that footage would have been a massive priority to store and preserve. One Russian official even weighed in, calling for an investigation, and the agency's story remains firm. According to them, in 2004, an archive in Sydney confirmed that it had located the missing videos, and then it was like, that's false. But then that kind of set in motion a global search for the missing footage. With its recovery, NASA wanted to produce sharper images of the landing than those were originally broadcasted, which were produced by a TV camera pointed at a monitor. But most folks at NASA now believe the tapes are long gone. Why? Budget cuts. Yeah. Those aren't just a modern thing, folks. It was standard procedure throughout the 60s and 70s to reuse tape reels after a certain number of years in storage. The originals were likely part of a batch of up to 200,000 tapes that were magnetically erased. The footage is just out there in the ether, right next to the old episodes of Doctor Who that have gone missing over time. So what has been saved throughout the years? Well, in 1972, astronaut John Young developed a major case of gas while standing on the moon. He had accidentally left his microphone on, and NASA recorded his discussion on what all the fruit was doing to his intestines. This same astronaut was also recorded while eating a corned beef sandwich he had smuggled aboard a separate mission, which, when shared with his co-pilot, began to crumble and fly around everywhere, threatening to get behind the electrical panels and short-circuit wiring. Because, yeah, that's important to archive. a messy sandwich. So much more important than the first man on the moon. Yes, we still have the video that's been reused and reshown over the years through many different mediums, but to have the original tape be gone? That's just sad. Considering how many astronauts are experts in engineering, biology, mathematics, physical science, mechanics, piloting, and really whatever else might be pertinent to a mission, it's unsurprising that they understand a little thing called supply and demand. In the months leading up to the legendary Apollo 11 launch, Neil Armstrong and his crew signed hundreds of autographs, but most notably were the covers, or envelopes that were signed and postmarked on important dates. Now, when NASA fell short on the astronauts' life insurance policy, these guys were smart. They sent signed covers to their friends and families so that they could be sold off in the event of a disaster. Their actions were warranted as well, by the way, because reports say that NASA already had a plan in place to sever communication with Apollo 11 if the astronauts became stranded on the moon. Nixon even had a pre-written speech. Also, even as recent as 2003, NASA had no special insurance for its astronauts. When the Challenger mission exploded mid-flight, the families of the deceased, well, they got the standard federal life insurance payout, nothing more. So after the Yahtzee news, this was the most head-scratching story for me today. Astronauts are out here risking their lives for knowledge that will better the human population as a whole, and they don't even have special insurance for that? I was speaking with a friend who works in crew setup and teardown for events the other day, and for folks who work as riggers, they have to provide their own super expensive insurance before they can even be considered for a job. And if they get hurt in any way on said job, even minimally, that insurance price is going up. And while that's dangerous in its own right, it's not space travel dangerous, where you could die before you even make it to space if things go wrong. I don't know, I think astronauts need insurance. The good news is that with space tourism consistently teased on the horizon, some private companies are ready to cover your anti-gravity adventure. Personally, I have less than zero interest in risking my life in space, but hey, let me know in the comments if you'd ever be interested in that. If anyone has ever read the book SEX on the Moon by Ben Mesrick, then you already know the tale of Thad Roberts and his plan to do something very interesting with a bunch of stolen moon rocks. And for folks like myself who didn't know until recently, buckle up for something I couldn't make up even if I tried. Thad was a high-flying NASA co-op with dreams of obtaining multiple degrees and becoming an astronaut. And he also had dreams of stealing some of NASA's most prized possessions. With help from a team of accomplices, because you can't steal from NASA alone, he stole 101 grams of moon rocks, valued at a little simple $20 million from NASA's Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas. For reference, that's slightly less than half a cup. And that's $20 million. That's more money than I'll see in my lifetime. And if that wasn't bad enough, he also stole some dinosaur bones from his university. Now, as somebody who knows a thing or two about dinosaurs, I tried finding out what dino the bones were from, but I got nothing. So if you know, let me know. So what did he do with the rocks? Well, he laid them out on his bed and proceeded to get down and dirty with his girlfriend on top of them. Hence the whole SCX on the moon thing. The young man and his fellow thieves were caught in an FBI sting because they tried to sell the rocks. Yeah, I know, stupid. And they were sentenced to time in jail. Just when I think I've seen it all around here, I still get surprised. Boinking? On space rocks? Ow? Oh, and before I move on, because of that, he contaminated the rocks, making them virtually useless to the scientific community. He and his buddies also destroyed 3 decades worth of handwritten research notes by a NASA scientist that had been locked in the same safe. All for some silly shenanigans and coitus. I'm without words. Perhaps one of the reasons why the space shuttle program was canceled was because people didn't want to have to keep clearing alligators off of the runway every time a shuttle came in to land. Yeah, no, seriously, apparently the Kennedy Space Center is full of the scaly snappers. The center is located on Merritt Island, which is a small mass of land off of the east coast of Florida that isn't technically an island, but who's keeping track? Despite being the most famous landmark on the island, the NASA complex isn't the only thing hanging out there. There's the Merritt Island National Wildlife Refuge, which is home to over 1,000 species of plants and animals. We're talking sea turtles, manatees, bobcats, bald eagles, you name it, they have it. And of course, they've got gators. So NASA does have the ability to restrict human access to the site should they need it, but how do you go about telling, a gator how to do that? According to the agency, interactions between their staff and the gators is rare, but that's obviously what they're gonna say. It's a PR statement. Look, gators were one thing I was very glad I didn't see when I took a vacation to Florida last year, and I'd like to keep it that way. And turns out it's pretty dangerous living conditions for the creepy crocs. NASA has identified one toxic groundwater site at the Kennedy Space Center that exceeds federal standards for the same chemicals that people in the area fear contributed to increased cancer risk. Heck, even a paper published in the Environmental Toxicology Journal found the redness fluids of alligators caught between 2012 and 2015 at the Space Center tested at the highest levels of toxic fluorinated chemicals ever measured in the species. That's bad. And that's it for me once again, folks. I've been Alexa, the resident dookie spooky girly, and if you enjoyed my ramblings today, could you help us out by giving this video a like, subscribing if you aren't already, hit the bell for more NASA exposing from us here at Top 5 Scary Videos, and I'll see y'all next time, you lovely spooky people.